Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we cut through the noise, stack up the research, and hand you the synthesized truth, giving you the knowledge shortcut you need. Today, we're getting into something I think is maybe the most universal anxiety of our time. That haunting, grinding feeling that whispers, why do I feel I'm always behind?
It's just exhausting, isn't it? You go online, you look around at your peer group, you see friends hitting all these milestones, the new job, the 5-year plan, all mapped out, financial stability, and it's all just constantly broadcast, packaged up for you to consume instantly.
Yeah, and meanwhile, you're just wrestling internally with, well, with ambiguity. You're just trying to get the mental energy together to do the next small thing on your list.
Exactly, and that gap, that contract between their highlight reel and your reality, that's what we're digging into today.
Right. And our core thesis for this deep dive is a challenge to that fundamental assumption that feeling slow is some kind of personal failure. The sources we've looked at suggest it's actually something way more complex. It's a failure of perception, a flawed frame of measurement. It's what our sources call a technologically and socially engineered illusion of speed.
And we need to be really clear with you, the listener, on this from the get-go. This isn't about shaming you or telling you to just try harder. This is about calmly exploring why the entire modern system is basically designed to make you feel this way. I mean, this is not a personal pathology. It's a system-level effect, and you're just reacting logically to a totally artificial environment.
Okay, so let's get specific. Let's detail that initial shock. What are the symptoms someone listening right now might be feeling that confirms they're caught in this illusion?
Well, it really just starts with the comparison itself. You see others with the money, the skills, a clear direction in life, and you immediately contrast that polished highlight with your own internal chaos, your doubts, your moments where you just feel stuck.
And the symptom is that immediate leap to a conclusion about yourself. Exactly.
The conclusion that you are fundamentally lacking something. And you start asking that question, am I truly slow, or do I just imagine I am? That simple question is what absolutely paralyzes people.
So what's the devastating internal result of measuring your life like this all the time? It seems to create this paradox.
It does. I mean, our brains were not wired for constant global comparison. They just weren't. But our modern environment has forced that mindset on us. Life was never meant to be a racetrack, yet our minds, fueled by all these external expectations, have turned it into one.
So we spend all our energy measuring our progress not by our own metrics, which would be logical, but by the speed of others.
Yes. We stop asking the important question, which is, what is the right pace for my unique life, for my energy, for my goals? Instead, we just ask, how do I not fall behind the person next to me? And that one shift in focus, relying on someone else's speedometer, a speedometer you can't even trust, that's the origin of the whole illusion and the burnout that comes with it.
Okay, let's unpack this systematically. If this feeling of being inadequate is an external thing, what are the high-power engines generating this illusion of speed? Our sources seem to point to two major forces working together: cultural pressure and the technological distortion of information.
Let's start with the culture. I mean, the mandate to be fast is not a choice you make. It's programming. Something we receive from the moment we're born, basically.
Fast equals good.
Fast equals good. Early success equals talent. And being a few years late means you've failed in some fundamental way. Think about that rigid timeline society pushes on us. Graduate by 22, get a stable job by 25, be settled, maybe starting a family by 30.
And the second you deviate from that default straight line, that feeling of dread just kicks in. It's like you've missed a flight that literally everyone else, it seems, is on.
And it creates this debilitating, cascading fear. The sources describe it so well. It starts with the fear of being slow. But that quickly morphs into a fear of inadequacy, the feeling that you're just not smart enough, not talented enough.
Which then gets bigger.
It expands into a fear of social exclusion, of being judged by your friends, your family. And all of that culminates in this huge existential fear of just being left behind by life itself. This constant high-pressure state is what the research calls the chasing psychology.
And that chasing becomes our default mode, which is just, it's not sustainable.
It's punishing. Because here's the real paradox built into the modern economy. It demands this dizzying speed from you, but it immediately punishes any haste or lack of foundation.
Right, so you're pushed to hurry up, but if you make a mistake because you're rushed,
you're set back for years. A rushed investment, a quick career change without thinking it through, a job you took out of panic. The system demands speed, but what it actually rewards is foundational strength.
So the truly capable person, according to our sources, isn't necessarily the fastest one?
Not at all. The research suggests that truly capable, established people often don't need to run fast. They just need to move correctly. Haste, that unnecessary rushing, it's often a sign that you're lacking a solid foundation or you're just being driven by anxiety.
And correct, deliberate movement, even if it's slow, is a sign of strength.
It's a sign of underlying strength and really a clear direction. We mistake the frantic running of the confused for the deliberate, confident strides of the capable.
That is a powerful distinction, movement versus correct movement. Okay, now let's talk about the accelerator pedal in this whole illusion. Social media distortion. I mean, this has to be the single most potent generator of the speed illusion.
Oh, absolutely. Social media is purely a highlight reel. And look, this isn't a secret, we all know this, but we constantly forget it in the moment. It doesn't show the grinding, ugly process. It only shows the final, polished result.
You see the finished apartment renovation, the successful company launch, the perfect relationship status.
Right, but you never see the 6-month breakdown that came before it, the years of dip, the 1,000 attempts that failed, the crippling self-doubt, or just the daily apathy that person felt for years.
It's the core miscalculation, isn't it? We're comparing our raw footage, our unedited, messy, confusing internal reality to their carefully curated, externally validated highlight reel. It's like comparing apples to orangutans. It's a comparison that is psychologically guaranteed to make you unhappy.
And the scale of this distortion has just mutated exponentially. As the sources point out, a generation ago, your comparison group was small. A handful of neighbors, maybe some colleagues, a few famous people in a magazine. Now, who are we comparing ourselves to?
The entire world.
Precisely. We compare our local average life to global extremes. The world's most successful CEOs, these online gurus who've cracked the algorithm, the models chosen specifically by that algorithm to maximize comparison and get you to buy something. We're forcing our very human, localized brain to compete with the top 0.1% of the 0.1% of all of humanity, all of it filtered and enhanced, to shine as brightly as possible.
So we're taking our average self, the self that struggles on a Monday morning, that procrastinates, that doubts itself, and we're comparing it directly to their peak self. Their one shining moment that probably took them 5 years of silent work to even achieve.
The math is just rigged against you from the start. And this is intensely amplified by what one source calls the spotlight effect distortion. People only publicize that final, successful layer. The signed contract, the goal achieved, the profitable investment. They deliberately hide the rough draft.
Let's drill down on that rough draft. What does the listener need to remember is being intentionally hidden from them?
Everything. Everything that's necessary for success but isn't glamorous. The 6 months of unemployment where they sent out 1,000 applications and got nothing back. The constant failure rate that maybe 95% of their ideas or projects completely fail. The chronic low-grade burnout they deal with every single day. The 2 years where they felt utterly useless and were seriously considering quitting everything.
So when they post that one successful outcome, they're shining a spotlight only on that.
On that one thing. And we see that light, we feel the shadow of the stage on us, and we assume we're excluded. But the hidden reality is just as chaotic as ours. Life isn't a performance stage, but this illusion makes us believe we're always being judged by an invisible audience.
And if social comparison is the fuel, then the sheer volume of information we consume is the velocity gauge that's just spinning out of control. Let's talk about information overload and what you called the faked pace. Our brains just can't handle this.
No, they can't. And the research on this is very clear. The human brain evolved to manage immediate tribal information. You know, who can I trust? Where's the food? What are the 3 big threats today? Now we're just drowning. We're hit with thousands of news items, hundreds of success images, billions of minutes of content every month. The brain can't process it quickly enough to make any real sense of it.
So the brain has a protective reaction, but it's a misleading one.
Yes. The brain's conclusion is that life itself must be moving faster than it truly is, because it can't keep up with the input. So we conclude, I must be slow. When the cold, hard reality is just the information flow is too fast for the average human neural system to process with any depth or meaning. We're confusing the speed of data transmission with the speed of human achievement.
And technology is deliberately driving this confusion.
It's the engine of it. Technology is designed for instantaneous, shallow consumption. 15-second TikToks, 24-hour stories that just vanish, news feeds that demand you refresh them every 3 seconds. This technological tempo, which is inherently inhuman, it's not sustainable, is then mistaken for the natural biological human tempo. And no one, not even the people posting the content, truly lives as fast as they appear on screen. It's a completely manufactured pace.
And this is where it gets really insidious, this concept of the compressed timeline. This feels like the ultimate deception that makes you feel slow.
It is. The compressed timeline takes the necessary, often long duration of mastery and just vaporizes it. Think of any success story you see online in business or personal development. They compress maybe 10 years of genuine trial, failure, debt, existential crisis, dark days into a single snappy line like, I launched my business and became profitable in 12 months.
Right, but what did those 10 years actually look like? Let's break down the reality that's just skipped over.
The reality is messy. It's year 1, 0 income, burning through all your savings, your first major attempt is a total failure. Year 2, you pivot, you take some unrelated survival job just to pay rent, you feel depressed and lost. Years 3 to 5, you're building a tiny foundation, gaining a few skills, but you're also racking up debt. Year 6, you have your first small success, but you still feel miles away from your goal. Year 7 to 9, you're trying to scale up, you face massive setbacks, maybe you burn out completely and have to recover. Year 10, finally, you achieve stable, recognized success.
So when you're listening and you see that viral post about the success in year 1, you don't see the silent accumulation of the previous 9 years.
Exactly. You just assume you're 9 years too slow. You're merely observing a heavily edited process that strategically skips the most painful, most necessary, and most time-consuming period of building. This artificial acceleration of information is the fundamental cause of the stress.
Yep.
You are not slow. You are being shown a fake pace, and you are measuring yourself against it.
That brings us squarely to the internal part of this, the psychology of the comparison trap. I mean, it's one thing to see the external illusion, but why do our own minds cooperate so well in making us feel bad? It often feels like we're actively seeking out the painful data.
We do, and it's driven by vulnerability. The sources are really clear on this. We don't really engage in intense comparison when we're feeling strong or stable. We start comparing when we're tired, pressured, feeling lost, or defeated.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. If you're genuinely happy and secure in your job, you might see someone get a promotion and think, oh, good for them, it won't destroy you. But if you're struggling with job insecurity, that same promotion suddenly becomes this catastrophic piece of arrogance against you. If you're content being single, you see happy couples and you just shrug. If you're feeling lonely, those same images become proof of your inadequacy.
So the comparison isn't random, it's actually triggered by internal pain.
Precisely. And the brain then actively selects the most painful image. The source material calls this painful selective comparison. It's the brain, often subconsciously searching for the most potent example, the most self-doubt inducing, envy-causing image, to validate the negative state it's already in. It's a mechanism that's looking for confirmation of its own failure.
And this spirals into what sounds like a massive cognitive error, the standardization illusion.
It's devastating. The standardization illusion is how the brain takes a total outlier and transforms it into the expected norm. You see one successful, wealthy, young person on a yacht on Instagram. Your brain instantly assumes 10 people are like that. Then everyone who is successful is like that. So an outlier, the 0.1% of the 0.1% is instantly transformed into the social standard you now feel you have to meet.
Wow, so our standard for normal success is based on data points that are statistically irrelevant.
Yes. It forces us into this desperate chase after a speed and a lifestyle that is not only unattainable, but is entirely constructed from extreme, non-representative data. We're setting ourselves up for chronic, inevitable failure just by accepting the brain's biased sample selection.
Okay, let's pivot to the philosophers here. They have a deep perspective on this internal pain. Looking at existentialism first, they suggest the suffering isn't really from being objectively slow, but from something deeper.
Yeah, the existentialist view is that we suffer not because our lives are actually failing, but because we believe others are living better than us. It's the illusion of others' progress. We assume everyone else has it figured out, the clarity, the organization, the emotional control. But the core truth, the existentialist would argue, is that everyone is fundamentally confused, anxious, afraid, and just taking things one day at a time, just like you are. The speed is a mask.
And what about those people who seem to be running the fastest, the high achievers who just never stop?
The existentialists have a really powerful insight here. Those who run perpetually fast are often fleeing their own internal truth. Their speed is a powerful distraction from having to confront their own profound discomforts. Loneliness, emotional ambiguity, a lack of deep meaning, or that terrifying question of whether they actually love the life they've built. Their achievements are a defense mechanism, not a sign of true alignment.
That shifts the whole dynamic. So if speed is often about running from something, then slowness might just be having the courage to stop and face the reality of your own life.
It is. Which brings us beautifully to Stoicism, which provides the framework for finding internal freedom in this whole chaotic measurement game.
What's the razor-sharp Stoic lesson for us here?
The Stoic lesson is one of radical self-focus. Your happiness, your worth, and your progress are not determined by anyone else's speed, period. The moment we synchronize our pace with others, we surrender control over our own lives. We lose our direction, our autonomy, our identity, because we're forced to operate based on external variables we can't control.
So the key is just an absolute focus on the internal.
Yes. Focus only on what you can control. Your effort, your pace, your ethical choices, your direction. You cannot control the results others get or what they think about you. The moment you drop that external yardstick, the moment you decide that your own life is measured only by your criteria, the illusion of slowness begins to instantly dissolve.
So we've established the external metrics are rigged, and our own psychological mechanisms are biased against us. Now let's get to the root misunderstanding that fuels this entire crisis. The belief that everyone should mature, succeed, and develop at the same linear, predetermined rate. This is the faulty social metric we have to dismantle.
Society inherited this rigid, linear rhythm from, the industrial age, where processes were standardized. That timeline, graduate by 22, stable job by 25, house by 30, it's just fundamentally unsuitable for modern, complex life. It's a monocultural expectation applied to a diverse, globalized reality.
And what are the crucial factors that linear timeline just completely ignores?
It ignores everything that makes you you. It ignores your starting foundation. Did you inherit resources or did you inherit debt? It ignores personal trauma and the healing time that requires. It ignores your emotional maturity, your financial conditions, the stability of the economy, and simply your unique biological disposition. Society applies one rigid measuring stick to billions of people living radically different lives. The expectation of uniform speed is just inherently unfair.
And the reality of modern careers is anything but linear.
That's the core mismatch. We live non-linear lives. It's rare now to study A, work in A, and retire from A. We study one thing, we burn out, we take a sabbatical, we work in a totally different field, we start a side hustle, maybe we go back to school in our 30s. When we follow the actual curved, non-linear rhythm that's required for survival today, but we deviate from society's straight-line expectation, we label ourselves as slow. We're just following the curve, while society only cheers for the people who somehow manage to skip that necessary curve.
And this is where the science gets really supportive. Modern psychology has identified 4 core biological rhythms, which proves we are fundamentally built to operate differently. We are not all built for the same speed.
Exactly, and it's so important to understand these not as labels, but as inherent operating systems. Society really only rewards one of them, which causes a lot of anxiety for the other 3.
Okay, so what's the first one? The one society loves.
First, you have the fast, explosive rhythm. These are the people who are quick to act, quick to think, quick to start. They're the ones who create the viral content and get that early, visible success. But their drawback is that they are prone to burning out hard, or quitting easily when things get tough, or just lacking depth. They make the noise that fuels the illusion.
Okay, so what about the person who feels slow right now? Which rhythm are they likely in?
That's often the slow, steady rhythm. These are the deep thinkers, the careful planners, the meticulous executors. They move slowly, but they move with immense durability and surety. Their internal crisis is this intense anxiety about being labeled slow because they don't produce those immediate flashy results. Their pace is durable, but it's socially invisible until they achieve massive scale years down the line.
And the third type, the person who feels inconsistent.
That's the cyclical variable rhythm. They have these intense high productivity periods, but they're interspersed with periods where they genuinely need total rest or a change of scenery to regenerate. They feel erratic. They're often mislabeled as unstable or unreliable by traditional corporate structures, but when they hit their peak cycle, they can achieve incredible things. They're just not built for the 9-to-5 grind.
And the final one, the rhythm that's often overlooked.
That's the stable, consistent rhythm. Not too fast, not too slow, but just steady, reliable, and deeply committed to continuous, gradual improvement. They're easily overlooked because they don't generate hype or crisis, but they are often the most durable long-term contributors in any organization. The point is, if you're a slow steady, a cyclical, or even a stable type, society is going to label you as slow simply because you don't fit that celebrated explosive pace. You are just different in rhythm, not deficient in ability.
This inherent difference means we have to reject the idea that we all have to mature at the same time. Not everyone is meant to be an early bloomer.
That's exactly right. Not everyone figures out their path at 18 or 22. Some people, especially the deep, careful thinkers, need time to ripen. They find their identity at 30, 40, or even 50. And this is not failure. This is the necessary time required to build a thoughtful, complex, and integrated life.
And the source material uses that beautiful metaphor of the seed. The seed that doesn't sprout fast isn't a bad seed, it's just building roots.
That's the essence of silent accumulation. Those who move slowly often go infinitely further in the long run because they are building deep, thoughtful, interconnected foundations. The vast majority of the time that's required for mastery, whether it's coding or complex strategy or emotional maturity, is spent in this invisible, silent accumulation phase. Society can't see the roots growing, so it just judges the lack of branches. But without the roots, the building will always fall. That slow period is often the period that creates the eventual breakthrough.
And that invisible work leads us to maybe the most crucial point in rejecting the injustice of it all, the starting point disparity. The social metric just completely fails to account for the different starting lines people have, making the conclusion, I am slow. Fundamentally unfair.
We have to spend time on this because this is the most liberating insight for you if you're listening to this. The linear metric assumes everyone starts at zero, but that is a profound delusion. Let's use the contrast example from the outline.
Okay, lay it out for us.
We have person A comes from a wealthy family, private education, zero financial stress. They had expert career guidance from a young age. They have the time and safety to explore and fail. All of their energy is spent on self-development and their career path. Then you have person B working since they were 18 to support their family, racking up student debt while working, maybe healing from psychological wounds from a tough background. They are constantly running out of time and energy for that same self-development.
So if person A achieves some visible societal success at 25, and person B is still just struggling to get basic stability at 30, the conclusion that B is slow isn't just insulting, it's an intellectual error.
It is an insult to their effort, their resilience, their sheer endurance. Person A is running a marathon on a flat, well-stocked track. Person B is running across a minefield while carrying a wounded family member and is still expected to match person A's time. You can't compare someone swimming alone to someone who inherited a boat and a trained crew.
So when you're listening and you feel slow, you need to reframe this immediately.
You need to understand, you are not slow. You are running a different, vastly harder race. And your definition of success has to reflect the resources you started with and the energy you spent just to survive. You're starting from a place most people wouldn't dare look, let alone run from. That is not slowness. That is heroic resilience.
Okay, we spent a lot of time on defense dismantling the illusion. Now let's shift to offense. Moving slowly, deliberately, and with awareness is not a fallback position for the weak. It is, in this exhausted modern era, the superior strategic choice for long-term endurance and eventual victory.
Let's start with that foundation metaphor again. Building roots versus building branches. Fast growth often relies heavily on external factors. Luck, being in the right place at the right time, exploiting some temporary market height. They rise fast, but they often crash harder because they lack real, tested experience and internal know-how. They've built a tall structure on shallow foundations.
The classic house of cards.
Precisely, it's brittle. Whereas the slow pace allows for the building of robust roots. You build genuine core skills, you accumulate deep, nuanced experience, and you establish robust thought systems that can survive when the market shifts. You build what the Force calls no-look inner strength, which is about knowing your limits and your true direction.
So slowness provides a kind of quality control.
Yes, it ensures durability. There is a profound philosophical insight here that we should hold on to. Things that are not rushed often remain. Speed is temporary, foundation is forever. Long-term value is determined by the strength of the foundation, not the initial burst of speed.
And crucially, this slow, deliberate approach protects you from the epidemic of our time, burnout, which is so often misinterpreted as just being tired.
Well, burnout is so much more complex than fatigue. It is rarely caused by just working hard. It is caused by the profound stress of forcing a rhythm that doesn't belong to you over a long period of time. When people force themselves to run at a societal pace they weren't neurologically designed for, they eventually break emotionally, physically, and creatively.
The slow person, the deliberate person, conserves their energy then.
They manage energy as their most precious resource. They move at the right pace for them, which conserves their life energy. It maintains their capacity to keep learning and enduring over decades. They've made a conscious, strategic choice that they don't want to die on the racetrack. They're pacing for the true marathon of life, which is 80 years long, not for the 100-meter dash the internet demands.
And this feeds directly into resilience. True strength isn't about that quick, explosive success.
No, true strength resilience is built slow. The person who moves slowly is accustomed to small disappointments, to consistent adjustment, to taking the long-term view. They're like tempered steel, hardened by repeated exposure to resistance. They're used to changing strategies and adjusting their effort without shame. True strength comes not from achieving that initial speed, but from the ability to get up, adjust your direction, and keep moving forward, no matter the setback.
And if resilience is strength, then depth is the most valuable capital you can acquire in this superficial age.
Absolutely. We are just saturated with superficiality. Depth is the greatest asset, and it is purchased only with time, reflection, and quiet introspection. The slow person, because they allow time for reflection, becomes inherently deep. They're reflective, cautious, analytical, more emotionally stable, and less impulsive. They're just better equipped to handle real-world complexity than the fast mover who's always skimming the surface.
And the sources describe accurate observation as the slow person's superpower.
In a chaotic, noisy, and often deceptive world, accurate observation is an unparalleled strategic asset. The fast runner, driven by the need for quick results, overlooks crucial details, hidden risks, and the true nature of their choices. The slow person notices the dark side, the hidden traps, who is pretending and who is genuine. They see the patterns because they aren't rushing past the data. And one right decision, even if it comes late, is infinitely more valuable than 10 fast, wrong ones.
That focus on observation directly translates into superior decision-making, which is perhaps the biggest strategic advantage of finding the right pace.
It is. Fast runners often make decisions based on excitement, external pressure, momentary emotion, or the need for immediate recognition. They choose the path that looks good right now. Slow movers, by contrast, base their decisions on facts, deep analysis, long-term observation, and most importantly, alignment with their deeply held personal values.
What's the ultimate cost of speed here?
The cost is major directional errors. Going slow prevents choosing the wrong career path, marrying the wrong person, or accepting a toxic business environment. These are the kinds of mistakes that cost not months, but 5 or 10 years of your life to untangle. A fast mistake is still a mistake, and the cost of correction can be enormous.
And what about the ego cost of speed?
The ability to stop, adjust, change direction, and start over is the silent advantage of the slow person. Those who run fast often stubbornly continue down a flawed path, even when they know they're wrong, because of ego or external expectations or the shame of having to admit they chose incorrectly. The slow person is flexible. They prioritize their life and alignment over the need to prove they were right all along. They choose the quiet, necessary correction over the loud, self-destructive continuation.
So we've established that the right pace is a superior strategy. But what is the ultimate internal payoff of going right over just going fast? What does it give us that speed can't?
The ultimate payoff is meaning, alignment, and that idea of nolek, or inner strength. Going fast can lead you far, far away from yourself. You can achieve tremendous external success, money, profile, status, but this success is often coupled with an internal emptiness, with burnout and a profound loneliness. You've won a race, but you realize the destination is alienating you from yourself.
The source material gives us that clear distinction. Going fast takes you to a destination. Going right takes you home.
That alignment is everything. Inner strength isn't derived from external achievements. It comes from the unwavering knowledge of what you are doing, why you are doing it, and whether it aligns with your core values and your inherent rhythm. Inner strength is that psychological foundation that helps you remain stable when external circumstances change dramatically. And it is formed by going right, not by chasing fast results.
And conversely, if you prioritize speed, you are often motivated by the most dangerous internal driver, fear.
We have to look deep inside and ask ourselves honestly, why am I rushing this? Why am I working 80 hours this week? The answer often boils down to a constellation of fears. Fear being left behind, fear being judged, fear of poverty, fear of disappointing others.
And motivation based on fear is a terrible engine for sustained progress.
It's exhausting and unsatisfying. Motivation based on fear leads to continuous, often frantic running. But the fear never goes away because the external world is infinite. The running itself becomes the source of exhaustion. You are running away from something. In contrast, motivation based on self-knowledge leads to steady, sustainable progress because you are moving toward a life you genuinely value. Going fast is a reaction. Going right is an autonomous, self-respecting choice.
This necessitates the final, radical step of redefining what success even looks like, of throwing out society's scoreboard.
Society only measures external, visible results: money, job title, speed, or promotion status symbols. But the true, durable metrics of a life measure internal reality. Peace, meaning, psychological health, self-understanding, the ability to overcome a crisis, emotional depth.
So it's actually possible to lose socially, to not meet the typical timeline, but profoundly win in life.
Absolutely. The worst outcome is not being slow. The worst outcome is running fast in a life that does not belong to you, sacrificing your internal well-being for external validation. The sources stress that the most meaningful journeys, building a deep career, forging a clear identity, cultivating quality relationships, they always take time. Quick gains lead to illusions and shallow results. Slow, deliberate effort leads to foundation, inner strength, and true sustainable balance.
This is the crucial application phase. If we accept the illusion and the strategic advantages of slowness, how do we practically tune out the noise and identify our own unique, sustainable base rhythm?
Your base rhythm is a core part of your psychological structure. It's fixed, like being an early bird or a night owl. It includes your natural sensitivity, your recovery needs, your neural energy system. You can't force yourself to be someone you're not. The slow thinker can't be explosive forever. The goal is to identify the rhythm that allows you to sustain life without constantly fighting yourself.
And how do we test for that rhythm when we're constantly bombarded by external noise telling us what to do?
Through the test of quiet. You can't find your rhythm when you're immersed in external pressures and deadlines. You have to observe yourself when you are quiet and disconnected. Taking long walks alone, turning off notifications, maybe banning social media for an hour, just sitting in stillness.
What are we listening for in that quiet space?
We're asking specific diagnostic questions. When do I do my best, most flowing work? What task makes me burn out easily, indicating a rhythm mismatch? When do I feel most peaceful, indicating alignment? Your true rhythm reveals itself when you stop performing for the world. The right rhythm isn't the one that makes you 100% comfortable, but it's the one that allows you to sustain your life without leading to self-destruction or psychological collapse.
And once you begin to align with that true rhythm, the reward is an immediate lift in your mental quality. The reward is presence.
Presence is that state where your mind is fully engaged in the now, your emotions are stable, and you're not paralyzed by anxiety about the future or crushed by regret about the past. When you're in your right rhythm, you stop seeing life as a grueling race and work as a burden. You are fully present in every action, every decision, a state that the excessively fast person entirely loses because they're constantly chasing the next goal, never appreciating the one they just reached.
Let's move to the actionable steps. Small daily habits to deprogram this deep-seated illusion of speed. What is step one?
Step 1. Drop the external metric. This is critical. Stop measuring your life by arbitrary social yardsticks, marriage age, stability age, career age. Every time you feel that gnawing feeling of slowness, interrupt it with the question, am I comparing my life to my own unique journey or to someone else's highlight reel? The sources suggest that just asking this question honestly causes like 90% of the immediate anxiety to just disappear. External measurement is optional. It is not mandatory.
That reframing provides immediate psychological relief. What about addressing that feeling of stagnation?
Step 2. Go steady, not fast. The feeling of slowness often comes from prolonged stagnation, not a true failure of speed. The solution is never to start sprinting. It's consistency. Choose a tiny sustainable goal, 10 minutes of reading a day, 1 paragraph of notes, 15 minutes of quiet exercise, and do it daily. This builds psychological momentum. You prove to your brain that you are moving, which defeats stagnation. The steady, slow drumbeat of consistency always wins over short-lived bursts of speed.
Step 3 relates back to that quiet test, making it a daily habit.
Step 3. Create intentional stillness. Dedicate 10 to 15 minutes every day without screens, sound, or media. This isn't meditation, it's diagnosis. In that quiet, you gain clarity about your internal drivers. You can gauge whether you are running from fear or moving toward your life. Truth and purpose and self-knowledge, they rarely reveal themselves over a loud social media feed.
And how should we address that comparison reflex going forward, since it's so powerful?
Step 4. Stop comparing resources.
Hmm.
This is the practical, non-fluffy rejection of unjust comparison. Don't compare your current outcome, your income, your profile, to someone who clearly has massive non-earned resources, like family wealth or a huge safety net. The only true, fair, and psychologically healthy comparison is with your past self. Where was I 6 months ago? Have I progressed even a little bit since then? This is the only metric that honors your unique starting line, your struggle, and your effort.
And finally, a step to balance the physical pace of our life.
Step 5. Embrace real life's natural slowness. We have to deliberately balance the fake, hyper-fast pace of the online world with the slow, natural rhythm of the real world. This means intentionally adding slow, analog activities. Exercise that requires sustained movement, reading physical books, making things with your hands, gardening, or just quiet, non-judgmental observation in a park. This deliberate addition of slowness lowers the perceived overall tempo of your existence, making the technological speed less dominant and allowing your true human pace to emerge.
What a profound journey. We've established that the entire structure of modern comparison is engineered to make you feel insufficient. We're comparing a chaotic internal process to a manicured external result, and forgetting that moving correctly at our own aligned pace is the ultimate strategy.
Exactly. The core insight has to stick. Speed does not define you, direction does. A person who runs fast in the wrong direction always suffers the pain of having to turn back and start over, losing years of accumulated effort. You do not need to be fast to catch up with life. You need to be right so that your life, when you look back on it, is meaningful, durable, and aligned with your deepest self.
So we arrive at the final liberating truth, the antidote to the constant anxiety.
The final truth is this: you are not late. You arrive exactly when your life needs you to be there, accumulating strength, healing past wounds, and finding your true identity. You are not a failure for taking your time. The sources remind us that maturity isn't about having all the answers or hitting all the milestones early. It's about confronting the ambiguity of your life without judging yourself as useless.
It's the moment we choose our own path.
Yes, when you stop running from the world's expectations, you finally start living your own life. And when you live at your own unique right pace, you build a foundation so deep and durable that you become who others eventually cannot keep up with. Why? Because the world praises the fast, but time, that ultimate judge, praises the durable.
That leaves us with this final provocative thought for you to chew on. If going right is more important than going fast, what single value or long-term goal, if truly pursued, would justify slowing down everything else in your life right now? Think of that thing. Identify your base rhythm and start moving toward it at your pace.